Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The Prophet of mankind, the peace of our heart and mind, the most generous and kind, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, has said, Indeed, he who recites salat durood upon me the most will be the closest to me on the day of judgment. Please recite after me. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Rasulullah.
As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Rasulullah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habibullah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Nabiyullah.
As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Nabiyullah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurullah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurullah.
Please all recite the following dua after me. Ya Allah Azza wa Jal,
Ya Allah Azza wa Jal,
open the doors of knowledge and wisdom
open the doors of knowledge and wisdom
for us
for us,
and have mercy on
and
us.
have mercy on us.
O the one who is the most honorable
O the one who is the most honorable
and glorious.
and glorious.
We hope you all found the Ramadan speeches useful, inshallah. Our next series of speeches will focus on Aqida, inshallah, using Bahari Ishariat as our source of information related to Aqida. Aqida means proper Islamic belief. To have the right Aqida is essential for Muslims. Our first few speeches will focus on the Aqida regarding Allah Azza wa Jal.
Aqida. Allah Almighty is one. He has no partners in being, attribute, actions, command, or in names. Almighty Allah is wajibul wajud. His non-existence is absolutely impossible. Allah Almighty is Qadim, always was, always will be, not a creation. Another name for this is Azali or Abadi. It is Allah Azza wa Jal alone who is worthy of worship. It must be understood that Allah Azza wa Jal is one. In other words, there is only one Allah Azza wa Jal. If any person believes that his God has partners, then that God of his is not Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal is one without any partners. Allah Azza wa Jal being wajibul wajud means that Allah Azza wa Jal existence is necessary. In other words, if someone claims for his God to be non-existent, then it is clear that that is not Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal is all existing. Muhal means that which can never occur. In other words, Allah or the non-existent of Allah Azza wa Jal is Muhal. When we say that Allah Azza wa Jal is Qadim, we mean that Allah Azza wa Jal has not been created. Allah Azza wa Jal always was and always will be. It is our belief that Allah Azza wa Jal alone is worthy of worship.
Subhanallah.
Aqida. Allah Azza wa Jal is free from need. In other words, Allah Azza wa Jal is not dependent on anyone or anything. Rather, the entire creation is dependent on Allah Azza wa Jal. When we say that Allah Azza wa Jal is free from, it means that Allah Azza wa Jal is not in need of anything from anyone. Allah Azza wa Jal does not depend on anything or anyone.
Subhanallah.
In other words, every single atom in the creation is dependent on one creator, Allah. There are those who think, Allah forbid, that Allah Azza wa Jal created angels, etc. to do certain chores. So these mean that Allah Azza wa Jal is dependent on them to do these chores. This is totally incorrect. Allah Azza wa Jal created the angels as his servants and gave them the opportunity to serve him as their Lord.
Subhanallah.
It is the angels and all the creation that are dependent on Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah Azza wa Jal is without doubt dependent on none.
Subhanallah. Aqida. To comprehend, understand Allah's Azza wa Jal being, Zat, by means of reason is absolutely impossible. That which can be understood by means of reason can be comprehended and encircled by the mind, and there is nothing that can be encircled or comprehend Allah's Azza wa Jal being. However, through Allah's Azza wa Jal works of all His attributes can be identified, and through His attributes one is able to attain knowledge about the being of Allah Azza wa Jal. The above mentioned Aqida explains that it is absolutely impossible for us to comprehend Allah's Azza wa Jal being. The reason that has been given for this is that anything which can be understood can be comprehended. But for the sake of understanding, an example without comparison is that if one thinks of a bird, then one's mind can comprehend a bird's physique, and one will thus be able to imagine or picture a bird. The reason for this is because it is tangible, which the mind can understand through reasoning and knowledge. Now, none can imagine or picture Allah Azza wa Jal. Thus, the human mind cannot comprehend Allah's Azza wa Jal being, as it is beyond the understanding of the creation. Subhanallah. However, it has been explained that through the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, such as His mercy, His wrath, etc., we are able to know about Allah Almighty and His commands. Aqida. Just as His being is Qadim, Azali and Abadi, all these terms mean non-created, always was and always will be. His attributes are also Qadim, Azali and Abadi. It must be understood that Allah Azza wa Jal is self-existent. Allah Azza wa Jal is all-existing. In other words, not created, always was and always will be.
Subhanallah.
Aqida. With the exception of Allah's Azza wa Jal being and attributes, such as Allah Azza wa Jal being most merciful, the sustainer, etc., everything else is hadith, meaning that it did not exist and only came into existence after Allah Azza wa Jal created them. This means that with the exception of Allah's Azza wa Jal being and His attributes, everything else is a creation. In other words, the angels, prophets, jinns, humans, and everything else in the universe only came into existence after being created by Allah Azza wa Jal. So they are all known as creation. In other words, all creation came into existence through Allah Azza wa Jal's command.
Aqida. Any person who says the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal to be creation is a misled, corrupt person. This is a very important Aqida. It clearly shows that any person who claims to believe in Allah and then claims that any one of the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal have been created, then such a person is misled and corrupt. A corrupt person is known as Gumrah and Buddin. Sunni Muslims should never associate with misled persons, and they will also mislead us and plunge us in corruption. Aqida. Any person who says anything in the universe to be Qadim, uncreated, or has a doubt in it being Hadith, created, is an unbeliever. None has the right to say anything in the universe to be created or self-existent. As I have mentioned before, with the exceptions of the Allah Azza wa Jal being the attributes, everything else has been created. This belief makes a clear note of the fact that any person who claims that any creation in its self-existence, or even doubts that a creation is self-existent, in the kafir unbeliever.
Subhanallah.
Even though he may accept all the other beliefs concerning Allah Azza wa Jal, and he doubts this one Aqida, then such a person is still an unbeliever. Aqida. His attributes are neither the same nor separate from His being. It is not so that His attributes or the names alone of his being, Zat. In reality, his attributes cannot be separated from Allah's being.
Subhanallah.
Aqida. Allah Azza wa Jal has power of everything that is possible. There is nothing possible which is outside his power. In the same way, anything that is totally impossible is not within his power. Anything which is impossible has not connection to Allah. To Allah Azza wa Jal, and He is free from this. An example of this is that there can never be another Allah. The non-existence of another Allah is absolutely impossible, over which Allah Azza wa Jal has no power or command. In the same way, the destruction of Allah Azza wa Jal is absolutely impossible and has no connection to him. It is thus very evident that neither of those things which are absolutely impossible connected to him, and nor does Allah Azza wa Jal have any power command over them. Thus it has been proven that to accept any muhal absolutely impossible to be within Allah's control is to in reality reject the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jal. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept our efforts and give us the ability to safeguard our Aqida. Ameen. Please remember us in your du'as. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.